Greetings. My name is Ruban Roberts, and I am the CEO of RER Consulting and ACR Consulting. And we're bringing you COVID 19 Mental Health Wellness Wednesdays. Wednesdays is brought to you by RER Consulting and ACR Consulting. RER and ACR has two signature programs, and that is the COVID 19 Mental Health and Wellness Program and the Teen Talk Program. The COVID 19 and Mental Health and Wellness Program is essential for you to find out what's your scores for in the areas of depression, anxiety, stress, and levels of support. And tonight we're going to talk a lot about that. We're going to talk about the stigma associated with a mental health diagnosis and why it's important for us in the Black community to seek help. I think Antwon will give you a clearer definition of what the acronyms HUSH stands for, and you'll see the true reason why HUSH was developed. So what I want to encourage you to do is go to our website at mymentalhealthmiami.com. When you go to the website and click on the link, mymentalhealthmiami.com, go to the upper right-hand corner. In the upper right-hand corner is a link for the survey. Take the survey. The survey takes about 12 minutes. The survey, once you complete the survey, you'll receive a scorecard. And again, it will tell you where you fall in the areas of stress, depression, anxiety, and levels of support on a scale of 0 to 10. Once you get your score, and it's very important for you to know your score, once you get your score, you can have access to our care coordination team. And what our care coordination team will do is link you to the proper services so that if you need any help regarding some sort of mental health assistance or any environmental helps like employment, housing, food, you can call our care coordination team at 786-433-8487. And someone there will assist you with whatever assistance that you need for any help that you need. But again, the priority is to go to mymentalhealthmiami.com, click on that link, complete the survey. And this is where we come and talk about issues related to mental health with our special guests. Today, we have a special guest that some of you may know. I introduced to some of you, and others already know him. And his name is Antwon Lindsey. He is the creator, the developer of the movie Hush. And if you haven't seen it, here's a quick trailer for you to check out.
And so now here you have it where if I am silent, then I can't be free. And if I can't be free, then what freedom do I have to pass on to you?
It's not really talked about when you're not feeling good. It's not really talked about when you have feelings.
Because Black folks didn't believe in going to a psychologist. They didn't believe in going to a psychiatrist.
We often hear things like, you need to pray it off. It ain't that bad. Back in my day, it was worse. How does that open the door for anyone to feel okay about talking about what they're going through?
Are people gonna think I'm crazy because I went and got mental health support? I ain't crazy, ain't nothing wrong with me.
We can't function without our brain. So it would be a good idea for us to learn how our brain works and our brain functions.
Once we have a better understanding of who we are, our triumphs, our pain, our struggles, the next step would be for us to be able to resolve that hurt, to resolve that pain.
When we talk about healing, healing is a journey. There's no destination to the healing process.
Mental health is actually contributing to our overall wellness. It's not a deficiency.
We abuse our children because we have been abused. We abuse our partners because we have been abused. Not realizing that there is some trauma that rests deep within our spirit, that is there unconsciously because we don't have the consciousness, because we don't have the spirit and silence to be still, because we're not nurtured. And so when we are not nurtured, then the broken beget the broken, and it becomes a perpetual and consistent cycle.
Greetings, Antwon, and thank you for joining us today.
Greetings. Thank you for having me this evening.
All right. So, Antoine, tell us a little bit about this movie that you developed. What brought you to this place to develop this movie? And what are you hoping that the viewing audience gets out of this?
So, good evening, everybody. Again, my name is Antwon Lindsey. What got me into creating Hush? Hush is an acronym for Help Us Say Help. It is a documentary on Black mental health. And my life experiences are the things that got me towards Hush. I had a lot of questions about my own existence, had a lot of questions about some of the voids I felt in my life, and things that I felt like I wanted to find answers to. My emotions, the way that I was thinking, the way that I was behaving, why was I experiencing certain things. And it led me to wanting to create a film where I can be able to really go in and get some of those answers, and also share those answers with other people that may also be struggling, also searching and seeking for help. And that's what really got me towards Hush. Um, just going through things of my own, and wanting to explore what that, what my existence was, and what it actually is in this very unique time that we get to spend on this earth. So that's why I created Hush.
So you just shared with us why, how you came about doing the movie Hush, but you didn't talk about some of the challenges. You said you used the word challenges a lot, but what were some of the challenges that you were experiencing? Because I think some of our listening audiences may be experiencing the same similar challenges, and so I'd like for you to give them some sort of perspective on what it was that you were facing.
Okay, so for me, growing up in Liberty City, Miami, I experienced death at a very young age. Um, when I was in high school, I had two individuals who were really close to me that were murdered in an event where I was supposed to be with them, and it just so happened that I decided to stay home that day, and having to kind of go and deal with that sort of experience, and then being the first individual in my micro family to actually go to college at the same time of having a son. I was 19 years old, and having to make that decision of, do I stay here in Miami, or do I leave and try to figure out this thing called life? My dad has been available to me in my life, but wasn't present. And so I say that with all love and respect, because there's a big difference when you actually have the presence of the father who may be giving you some encouragement or even guidance in life. And so for me, it was a journey of having to father myself and be a young father. And that was something that was really challenging for me, being able to look back at some of the things that I learned in the community, some of the things that I learned from my own family, and questioning things, and like, it just don't feel right for me. To a space where when I did leave back in 2012, to go to college, well, to continue my education. I did 2 years at Miami-Dade, and then I transferred to Florida Gulf Coast University. It was a huge culture shock, one, and then two, it was just, I had to figure it out, because I knew I left, and I had to do something. I had to make something in my life. I had to do what I said I was going to do, to be able to show my son that, if ever he wanted to take the opportunity to pursue his dreams, that he had an example of what that looked like. And it was tough. It was tough being away from home, being away from my son, primarily because I didn't have my dad that was there all the time, where I wouldn't be able to be there with him to experience those moments that I carried all the way with me up until about this past summer. My son just turned 11 years old, and I kept that with me, just feeling like, man, I let him down. And there was a lot of other different things that transpired. Um, like I said, dealing with death and family back to back to back, and all these other sort of things, and being a leader at the campus that I was attending. and the expectations of making sure that we had an experience being the lesser of the population on campus, creating this cultural experience for everybody, and folks really look to me for that kind of guidance, and that everybody always say, "Oh man, you're so calm, Twan," and all these other different kind of things, because I sort of see things ahead of time and respond to it as if it already has happened, and I'm able to get stay calm, more calm than a lot of people, because I can see if I respond this way, this is what's going to happen. And so I dealt with a lot of those challenges. I dealt with me in this existence. I dealt with the challenge of faith, as it relates to individuals growing up inside of a Baptist and and then going to a Pentecostal church with one of my good friends from high school, and understanding that although I enjoy the stories and enjoy the some of the wisdom, it just didn't resonate with me. And I found myself in the space of learning about all religions, and one that really, and the sort of a philosophy that really stuck with me was Buddhism. And when I engaged with Buddhism and Eastern mysticism, it really took me into a space of understanding, this idea of our existence and what my purpose is. And I realized that we don't have a purpose. We give ourselves purpose. And sometimes that's what drives us crazy, right? Because we give ourselves a purpose and say that we have to do this. And if we don't do this, then we're not successful. But I realized that if I didn't give myself purpose, then I could be limitless. And that's where Buddhism and mysticism took me, and I started to embrace some of these things and look at some of my habits and look at some of the idea of karma, which most people don't have a really well understanding of it. People think that karma is, if I do good, then I get good. If I do bad, then I get bad. And one analogy that I always say to people is, well, if karma, by that definition, that is karma, then what happens to the person that robs the bank and get away with it? Because society would say that he did something bad, but he would feel as though he did something good. So the true definition, or from my understanding of Buddhism and Eastern mysticism, is that karma is essentially what we think, what we feel, what we do, and the result of that, those actions in that order. And most of the times we don't realize that our thoughts aren't even ours, right? When we think about the life that we've lived, how do we learn English, right? Somebody had to teach us that.
All right, so I got to stop you here because you unpacking a lot. Put you on your path to wellness is first trauma. The trauma of having a father who was around, but not as available as you would like. Mm-hmm. And then the trauma of losing two friends in your life through violence. And I want to say to you that is something that I think is very common in our community, speaking of the Black community. I am an outlier. The guy that's doing this video, I think, is an outlier. Our fathers were around, even though I wasn't with him all of the time, but there was times that I did stay with him. And then I think that in Munch, James Mungeon, and I have talked about this in previous episodes. My age that grew up in the inner city. I grew up partly in the Bahamas and partly in the United States. And when I grew up, and folks from inner cities have experience. And so my first vision of seeing someone shot or brutally wounded, not even dead, but brutally wounded, was probably around 10. Mm-hmm. And to me, that trauma stays with us, but we normalize this experience, and it does eat at us on a regular basis. So you take, growing up in a home where both parents aren't there, and then you take, as a young man, trying to navigate the community that you live in and making decisions about, you know, where you're gonna go, how you're gonna live your life. You're gonna go in this direction where most people are going in terms of the street, fast money, or you're gonna go into a more safe, a more, productive route in terms of getting your education or getting a career job or that sort of thing. So when I hear you unpack all of these things, it really, I think, speaks to so many young people, boys and girls, who are at a place, at a crossroads, where they have to make decisions. So, was the turning point for you the loss of your friends, or tell me, what was the turning point for you to move on the path that you're currently on?
I think I've always been on this path,
Ah,
but unconsciously from like 7 years ago. And I'm saying certain things. I'm like, man, like I've always been thinking like this. Um, but I think the conscious, right? So the conscious, or what you would say, or the awakening of me realizing that I'm on this path happened within the last year and a half, 2 years or so.
really?
In 2020, when I went through a it was a very unique moment. I did my first screening tour with my film, got off of the success of that. It was something that, how I identify success is I did what I wanted to do. And then, that's how I see success. I did what I did with it. I did what I wanted to do.
Right.
And then, involving myself with trying to assist other people and realizing that there was nothing I could really do for them, and yet I was still sort of drowning, trying to assist them in 2020, and then in 2021, I ended up going through a lot of different other personal things in my life, such as my mom, who's my best friend. Uh, being she's recovered, but she had been diagnosed with a very I guess I can say like a not so significant form of cancer, but it kind of, I saw her change, and again, a few other things were happening in my life where I had to make a decision between, do I want to do the documentary or do I want to do my doctorate degree? And I had to make that decision because I didn't want to pull myself in too many different directions. And I had to make a lot of tough decisions in 2021. Um, Although life was still happening, I had to make sure that I didn't repeat certain patterns that I did in the past where things became overwhelming, and then I just decided to, put my head down, stay happen with or without our participation,
But
and I'd rather be
Antoine,
involved. Go ahead.
Antoine, you spoke about a major decision that you made very early on, even earlier than a few years ago, when you spoke about your decision about getting your education and not
Hmm.
being present with your child. So it seems like these things are cyclical, but you've experienced. So you talked about, you and your father's situation, and you mentioned that your mother was there and she was nurturing, and she's your best friend. But then you also talked about the loss of your significant friends, and then you talked about, you know, how you're just coming to terms with decision you made about going to pursue your education, rather than being present with your son. So it seems like you were on this journey a long time ago. You know what I mean? It sounds like you knew that there was something more for you, and I can't speak for you, but just based on what you're sharing with me, it seems like you made decisions to chart your path, the way that the way that it's played out.
I guess I can go to an event that was like my first sort of glimpse of it. Um, I was in I was in the ninth grade, and I was hanging around a bunch of dudes. Some who've passed, some who are in jail, some who are unfortunately homeless now. And I were around those guys, and I remember we went to a place down in like Little Havana, and we were down there riding bikes, and it just so happened that they were down there to rob people. And I remember, like, I saw it take, like, I'm driving riding the bike and I see it taking place. I'm like, yo, what's going on? And I hop off the bike, and like I'm trying to help the dude who they just like beat, and I'm trying to help him, and he's like trying, like, they hopped on the bikes and they just left. So I got on my bike, and then it turned out, like, some other people saw, and they started like chasing us in the car. Got out the car, came, and I was the only person there. This big old tall dude, he had to be at least about 6'5", 280, came out, and I'm just a little puny little thing out there. He done grabbed my bike, put it in his truck. Another dude comes out there trying to fight me, and I managed to get away. And the next day we got to school. You're like, oh, you were scared, this and that, and I'm like, what am I doing around these guys, man? These guys about to get me killed.
Right.
And I had a 1.6 GPA at that time.
Wow.
I ended up having to do summer school, night school. My mom didn't want to take me to neither one of them, so I had to walk sometimes. And I told myself, you know what? I would never put myself in a situation like this again. And ended up graduating high school with a 3.3 GPA. Even though I probably could have got higher, but I just had senioritis. But but I made that decision to my 10th grade year that I was gonna just get away from people and focus on what I wanted to achieve. And when and I wasn't doing it for anybody's praise. I wasn't doing it for my mom. Wasn't doing it for anybody. I was doing it for me, because I'm like, yo, like, I know I'm smarter than. Let me put the quotations. I know I'm more intelligent than what I'm allowing myself to be. And let me go ahead and see what this thing actually look and feel like on me. And that was my first glimpse of that. But like you mentioned, some of those decisions of going to school for my son, like, honestly, I feel like my back was against the wall. I'm experiencing these things where I see people dying, and I see what the jobs are like back home. And when you really don't have an education, I'm like, oh, that ain't really for me. Like, I actually applied to Publix, Winn-Dixie, all these different places, never got hired. So I said, well, obviously I must go to college, because none of these places want to hire me, and we'll see what it turns out to be. And the fast forward to, like I say, just so happened within the last 2 years, this true embracing of the conscious perspective of my existence, that's when it took place. Because I knew that I was making a lot of compulsive decisions, and sometimes I made some conscious decisions, but not really understand that that's what I was doing. But within the last year and a half, I've realized that we have to understand what being conscious is, and there's different levels of consciousness. But when we start to look at our lives and see that our lives is literally just memory, like you said earlier, trauma, that trauma is just a memory. It's just a memory that stays with us, that that I could go back and just visit them. I don't have to stay there, because sometimes people do that. They stay there and it becomes depression. And then what are these memories of experiences that happened in the past that are triggering these things of how I feel about the future, which is that anxiety. And I had to go back and I had to look at those things and transform that. So that way I could be limitless. I could be present. I can make sure that when I do this, I know what the results of this is going to be, and I have to accept it no matter what. And that's where I've been at and where I am.
That was very powerful. That was very powerful what you shared, and it is. our lives have, I mean, I know we're just getting to know each other, but our lives have very similar parallels. So that experience that you mentioned uh, in La Havana, I can tell you many stories in my youth that were similar. Uh, Most of my friends when I was younger, as you mentioned, either deceased or in prison or, uh, you know, just in a bad situation right now. But something in me uh, knew that that life was not for me.
Yeah.
And my way out was not just through education. I was good in terms of uh, a good learner. I didn't apply myself, but I was a decent athlete as well, and that's what helped me move. But being in a similar situation that you were, I had compassion for victims. I have no compassion for the folks who were perpetrating any harm on anyone. And I knew I didn't fit other than, you know, some of the other things, activities that we did for fun or whatever. But when it came down to activities that involve violence or criminal behavior, uh, Vince to live that life. And I wonder how many young men, and hopefully those of you who are watching right now, I'm hoping that you can get some of your children, your nephews, your nieces to hear this, because a lot of young men growing up in the inner cities have to make those choices. Do you want to be with the popular crowd? Do you want to do the popular things? Or do you want to do what's true to you? Because sometimes when you take that wrong path, even though that's not what's true to you, you know, it leads you down a path where there's no return. And so I'm so glad you shared that with us about that experience. It resonates with me. In fact, vividly, as you were speaking, I was thinking about some encounters I had and what made me choose to go in a different route. Had great parents,
Yeah.
great family, but the community in which I lived here in States, what was popular was doing those things that I thought uh, showed very little humanity towards people, and it was something that didn't sit well with me.
Yeah.
And so, for those of you watching, I want to encourage you again. These types of things really play a toll on you as far as your mental health and wellness. It pays a toll on you in terms of your stress, depression, anxiety, and level of support. So I want to continue. I want to continue to advocate for you to go to our website, mymentalhealthmiami.com. Fill out the survey. You must be 18 years or older to fill out the survey. Get your scorecard, and then contact our care coordination team at 786-433-8487. This is real talk, and I appreciate you being so candid and you know, about your experience. So now we of consciousness. What do you say to that young man, that young woman who's struggling, who's at that crossroad, and they're struggling with the decision to take that path towards righteousness, consciousness, or go down that path that's going to lead them to destruction? What do you say to them to give them some guidance?
In my experience and what I've learned is that you can't teach someone who doesn't want to be taught.
Mm,
And so I don't give advice unless it's solicited.
mm,
So in this existence, again, like I said, a lot of the things that we learn is just based on memory. Our communities remember what, these acts of violence looked like and felt like. We remember what that pain of losing a loved one to, gun violence, or we remember what our dads we're out there, slinging dope and doing this and shooting and this and that. We remember with our friends. It's memory. It's memories that are ingrained within our communities that continue to perpetuate the suffering. And it's not that it's impenetrable, but it has to be, for me, is to give people an opportunity to assess, like, have you looked at, like, really looked at your past? And I'm not talking about just the things that hurt you, everything. When we look at our DNA, we don't know where most of these genes come from, but we know that we have the nose of our ancestors, we have the hair of our ancestors, the skin of our ancestors. Have we decided to look into the past and to look at some of these memories and see what we can do to transform them if we don't want them to be this way in our lives as they are present? If we're not willing to do that, then you're going to continue to suffer. You're going to continue to go down the same paths over and over and over. And it's funny enough. I had several people reach out to me recently, and we talked. A few of my close friends, and all I do is just tell stories about my own experience of how I was able to look at certain things and do this. But I never tell a person that do this or how it's going to be, and you're stupid and this and that. It's like, hey, we get to live, from what we know, one life. We get to live consciously or we get to live compulsively. Compulsive is not even thinking about what you're doing. You're just doing things based off of memory that you haven't tapped into. Being conscious is looking at those memories and deciding that, wait, these are some things that aren't adding any good to the life that I say I want to experience, and or to the people that I say I love and care for. And once you come to a clear understanding of that, then it's up to you what are you going to do? Because, like they say, you can lead a horse to the water, but you can't force it to drink. And we can give all the advice, all the different things that we want to do that we feel like people need. But at the end of the day, it's ultimately an individual's own responsibility to create the life that they want to experience. And if they're looking for guidance, they have to seek it, because you can't teach anybody something that they don't want to learn. And in my new book that I'm getting ready to publish, I don't know when, but on the back of it, it says we are the seeker and the source. And what that means is the knowledge that we're seeking, the liberation that we're seeking, we are the very source of that. All it takes is for you to say that again.
It's within us,
right? All it takes is for you to look within,
right?
Look at those experiences that have caused this and that, and look at how you've responded to things over time, and see if there's a pattern. And if you see that there's a pattern, then hey, let's figure out how we can change this pattern into creating a life. When we look at the yin and the yang, no one ever said that it's just going to be all good. It's going to be the good and not so good. And at the end of the day, that's just my experience as a human. I've accepted that.
I love what you said: compassion and compulsion. That's
compulsion
the
and
consciousness and what was it? Compulsion. Yeah, consciousness and compulsion. I'm sorry. And that's in essence the crossroad.
Mm-hmm.
Crossroads that I was just mentioning. And so you mentioned that in your studies of different religions, that you found that Buddhism worked for you. And I know that I believe that one of the aspects of Buddhism is searching for enlightenment. Am I correct in that?
Most people believe that, but Buddhism really teaches that enlightenment isn't the place that you go to. It's a place
where you are.
You already are.
Yeah, where you are. That's what I'm saying. So I understand that.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, there was someone that said to me, if you see a man searching for enlightenment and on a quest for enlightenment, and they return, slay him, because enlightenment is never ending. It's ongoing. So yeah, I understand exactly that. But I know that that's one of the concepts that people hear when they
Right.
talk about a quest for enlightenment. So if you're going on that quest, you never return because it's an ongoing thing. It's something that's already there, and you're getting enlightened on a daily basis. And so I appreciate that. And so you took me through the journey early on, and then into where you are now, and in the space that you are right now. In terms of your social network, is it that you draw people to you uh, with similar ideologies? Or do you feel
Both.
isolated? Do you feel isolated because of your views, your practices, and your beliefs?
You know, I won't say isolated. I think a lot of people accept Twan for Twan, Trey for Trey. And it's funny because initially, I have, some folks that were close to me, like, man, like I don't know what you mean by that, man. You sound, oh, hey, I don't know what you talking about. But then they experience something that's like, oh wow, like this is what Twan was talking about. And it's
Right.
like, yeah, and I've accepted that, again, folks' religious beliefs, things like that. The way that my life has panned out is that everything that we exist in is concepts and ideas. None of us really know what is what. We don't know up from down because guess what? This is an infinite universe, and who knows what is up and who knows what is down. And so the more we try and tell ourselves to convince ourselves of one thing, that's when we become ingrained and we begin to, fasten ourselves to this one ideology, and we remain stuck there. And so for me, the concept and the idea of being limitless goes back to the idea of enlightenment, is that there is no, you never reach it. Limitless means that you continue to grow, you continue to experience life in an abundant way that you choose to experience it. And I see that for me, the people that are drawn to me, um, are people who are seeking within themselves, and they want to, they see that I have something, and they some sort of enlightenment, and they have questions to figure out how I got here, and I just refer them to the things that I use for my own reference. I read books, I've watched clips of a really great person that I would consider as a really great person, Sadhguru and Thich Nhat Hanh, and a lot of other different people that exist. And and I tell them, like, I don't have the answers for you. You can read this source material and find the answers out for yourself. But that's about it. Like, I can only share with you what I've experienced.
Right.
And I have a mentor, one of my big brothers, Moses Jackson. He does the same thing. I kid you not, he's speaking parables. I've learned from, and kind of got a sense of, okay, so this is how I should go about doing this for my own self. And again, I was a seeker. I was seeking the way to find what was going on within me. And I had to have a few conversations with people, but again, it wasn't like, well, I want to be like you. Like, how do I get like you? Like that. It was like, how do I understand me? How do I get clarity on me and my existence?
Mm.
What it really means to be me? What it really means to be, this idea of myself, in its existence? How do I connect with the world around me? How do I connect with the people that I say I love? How do I connect in an infinite way where, I can feel a person's energy? And this isn't to say the empathic sort of idea, but just really feel a person's vibration of what they're saying and what they're feeling, and really be able to understand their existence as well, because I have an understanding of mine. And so for me, I feel like the people that are drawn towards me are people who are either seeking or have sought within themselves. And as far as feeling isolated, I remember mentioning this to somebody last week. They were asking me like, did I ever feel that way before? And I said, yeah, I definitely felt isolated before. I have, but I don't anymore, because I realized that no matter how we try to put it, we're all connected.
That's right.
We're all connected.
We're
And
interconnected, interrelated. You're absolutely right.
right there's a,
And that's what that whole concept of energy, vibration, all of that stuff that you're talking about. And I know it may be foreign to some folks who are listening now, but hopefully, those who are on that quest can find it. I want to say to you that the information that you're giving is so profound. But I want to go back to, I think one of the concepts I've heard, I wasn't there when you did your screening. You were in college and you found yourself waking up in the closet or something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
And I'd like for you to talk about that, because for those who are watching about and want to learn about just mental health and wellness, I want you to talk about what that experience was like for you, and how did you seek help, and what was able to help you out of that particular situation.
So I was in college. This was 2015. I would never forget it. I'm coming up on my last semester of school. I extended my stay so I could, of course, be a charter member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated, the Upsilon Sigma chapter at Florida Gulf Coast University. So
Get your plug in, bro.
I extended my stay one more semester, fall 2015. But that summer of fall 2015, it was hitting me. It was like, man, like you're about to graduate. You have a son. Your family don't have millions of dollars. You took out student loans to be able to help give money to his mom while she was there because you didn't have a car. You were working on campus. You were leading all these different things. Like, what do you have to show for it? I had a grad assistantship while I was an undergrad. So I had these things that, that were there to show for it, but I couldn't see it. I couldn't see what I was, all the things. And I remember it was a brother. His name was Brandon Washington. He was a legal counsel at the university, a black brother. And we were talking, and he was asking me like, man, I don't know, man, like this I'm about to graduate soon. Like, am I gonna be? He's like, hey, man, he's like, if anybody gonna figure it out, you gonna figure it out. he's like, you gonna be all right, man. He's like, listen, I know. And so I kind of went through that, and I found myself waking up in the closet. Again, the memories of seeing what my idea of not being successful looked like in the community.
So you felt pressure.
Right. And projecting that onto my own future. And saying that, oh my God, if I don't do this, then I will end up like that. Again, just a memory that I held on to that had no relevance to what I was actually doing. Feeling, guilt about and regret about not being there with my son. And so I got this shame that I'm holding on to about the decision that I made to come up here. And, I didn't know what to do. And so I said, you know what? I remember a friend of mine went and used CAPS. It was the Counseling and Prevention Services. I believe that's what it stands for. And I said, you know what? Let me go ahead and check this thing out. See what it's really like. And I went, and I had an individual who, when I got there, it just was like talking to a piece of paper. And I'm like, yeah, no, I'm not about to do this. And I went up to the front for my after my session. I say, hey, listen, I'm gonna be honest with y'all. I need somebody else, man. Like, this guy he's just nodding his head and just like, yeah. And I'm like, he don't really understand what I'm going through. Like,
so there was a cultural difference there.
Exactly. He don't understand what I'm going through, and I just feel like he's not helping me. And I don't know what to do. And I was still doing my role on campus, leading and helping and doing things. And I ended up getting somebody else, and it was a woman, and, she came in, and, I went into her office, and she just like right out the bat, just kind of like asking questions, looking at the previous notes and kind of going into detail with certain things. And I'm just like, yeah. And like, I just kind of like, kind of loosened up a little bit and just like, hey, listen, I'm gonna be real with you. This is what I'm feeling, and this and that, and this, and we kind of processed some of those things, and it was helpful. And it was really helpful. I went for maybe two sessions, 3 sessions, because it was so far in between before I had to go to the next session. I was like, you know what, man, I'm gonna be all right. I'll figure this thing out. And I eventually started to figure things out on my own. Um, I said as I went through the journey. It's just one of the things that was for me was that I wasn't in a relationship. I was in a relationship for a long time, very consciously, because I wanted to give myself time to grow to what I thought was me and to learn more about me. And I used to have friends like, my homegirls like, man, Tony, you need to get it. I don't want to be in something where I'm giving them things that I don't want to give them because I've made those mistakes in the past. I want to be able to give, if I'm going to ever be in a relationship, someone the greater parts of me that I know that I can be able to hand and give to them. So that way, when I do decide to, have kids again, I also can be able to give them the best parts of me as well, so they can inherit that. And that would be their experience of life. And they didn't understand that, of course. But, it allowed me to grow how I wanted to grow. And like I said, 2020, I was doing it. I'll be honest, I got into a relationship a little prematurely, and things kind of went a little bit south, and I saw myself, questioning my decision on that, and then questioning some other decisions, which led me to, oh, okay, so I'm actually, none of this is wrong. It was all supposed to happen, and I'm getting the answers and the clarity that I've always wanted. It just ain't how I thought it was gonna look. And so yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's another powerful story that you shared with us. And again, you talked about really discovering self before you include someone else. You talked about the historical trauma. You talked about the role that religiosity and played in your life. All of these aspects of who you are makes you into the person that you are now. And understanding that, you can have moments where you're anxious. You can have moments where you're depressed. You can have moments where you're stressed. These are all common. And the reason why I say this is I want the listening audience to know that when you have these feelings, that they're not uncommon to any man, regardless of race, creed, or color. They're very common. And that's something that we all experience and we all go through. And this is why, we encourage you to go to the website, to mymentalhealthmiami.com, take that survey. Go sure you reach out to our care coordination team who can direct you to some services. And that care coordination team's phone number is 786-433-8487. Antwon, I really appreciate all that you offered us this evening. I thought it was very enriching, and I'm hoping that our listeners really got something from it. I'm looking forward to doing some live workshops with you, and to also do some viewings of your film at several colleges and universities here in Miami in the new year. And I want to thank you for coming in and joining us. I want to give this opportunity for you to give some last words, any upcoming events that you want to plug, anything that you want to plug in terms of how people can reach you, where they can find your work, your publications, your movies. Just share with the listening audience how they can find out more about you and what you've done.
All right. So if you want to communicate, connect, whatever word you want to use, you can always find me on Facebook, Antwon Lindsey, Instagram, Antwon Lindsey. as well as if you want to watch any of the previous works that I have as far as my films, you can go to A38 Films. That's letter A, number 3, number 8, films.com. You can watch those. Um, if you want to check out my books, you can go to amazon.com, type in my name. All of my books will populate. In addition to that, things that are coming up, we're going to be kicking back off the Hush screening tour in spring 2023. In addition to that, I'm getting prepared to do my first feature narrative film. Um, Hush is my first uh, feature documentary, and I'm preparing to do my first feature narrative film. I did 2 short films before that, and I knew that I had the gifts and talents and skills and, you know, just the devotion to being able to create the things that I wanted to create. He told me, he said, Antwon, just know that all films don't get made. And I listened to him, I nodded my head, but I said to myself, can't relate. So never let anybody tell you what you can't do. You can create whatever it is that you want to create. That's somebody else's experience. That's up to them. But you can create whatever it is that you desire. And the last thing relates to that very specific thing as well, is that this is your life. You are 100% responsible for the way that it turns out. 100% responsible for what you think, 100% responsible for what you feel, 100% responsible for what you do. And guess what? You're 100% responsible for how you respond to the reality that you exist within. And if you choose to respond to it compulsively or consciously, that's also, guess what? Your responsibility. And those are things that I want to leave you all with. So make sure that you continue to look within. You know, we are the seeker and the source of our own liberation, not money, not cars, not home ownership, not all these other different physical things that we can't put in the grave site with us when it's time for us to go. Look within, love the people around you, be limitless.
Excellent. Excellent. Now, you're also working to bring Hush to the mainstream, and I believe you have a GoFundMe page that you would you like to share that information?
Yeah, we're actually we're still working on getting some fundraising done. The GoFundMe is gofundme.com/Hush documentary. If you'd like to make a contribution to that, it's through a partnership that we have with the Alliance for the Arts. So all contributions are tax deductible, which is a great benefit for the community and for those who are contributors.
All right. So thank you once again for our listening audience. Thank you once again, Antwon. And for our listening audience, I strongly encourage you to really follow this young man. He has a bright future ahead of him, so many good things going on. He's very focused, determined. And I invite you to make sure, those of you who came in a little bit late, roll it back, watch it from the beginning. Those of you who want to share this episode with your kids, I think it's very important for them to hear.
Can I say something about kids?
Yes.
Adults, let kids be kids. We don't do the things that we think are going to make them stronger and brighter and this or that and this or that. They will come to you when the time is right. So sometimes you got to let them time to breathe, and they'll get there.
All right. Another pearl of wisdom from my brother Antwon Lindsey. Thank you again, Antwon, for coming out and joining us on our Wellness Wednesdays. I look forward for us doing much more in the future together. You've gotten the information. Support this brother, whatever way you can, by, the films contributing to his funding source, or coming whenever you see advertisement about his films. Trust me, you will not be disappointed if you watch the film Hush and his other work as well. This is Ruben Roberts for the COVID-19 Mental Health and Wellness. Make sure you go to that website, mymentalhealth.com. Up in the upper right-hand corner, take the survey. Make sure you contact our care coordination team if you need any services. If there's anything, and not even you, if you have a family member that you feel that may be in need of services, we want to make sure that you know that there's help. And it's okay to ask for help. And you can reach at 786-433-8487. This is Ruben Roberts and Antwon Lindsey signing out for this episode of Let's Talk Mental Health. Thank you, Wellness Wednesday. Thank you and good night, you all. Greetings. My name is Ruben Roberts, and I am the CEO of RER Consulting and ACR Consulting. And we're bringing you COVID-19 Mental Health Wellness Wednesdays. Wellness Wednesdays is brought to you by RER Consulting and ACR Consulting. RER and ACR has two signature programs, and that is the COVID-19 Mental Health and Wellness Program and the Teen Talk Program. The COVID-19 and Mental Health and Wellness Program is essential for you to find out what's your scores for in the areas of depression, anxiety, stress, and levels of support. And tonight we're going to talk a lot about it.